Welcome to the Missionary Minute.
This week we have a special guest, Sister Rebecca Sibbett.
Go ahead. Okay. So I have had trouble with my oven, and I called the repair person, and he came and he saw on my wall the first time a picture of the Salt Lake Temple, and he said, "Is that the Salt Lake Temple?" And I was like, wait, what? This doesn't happen. I've had so many repair people and construction people, and no one's ever mentioned this. Turns out he had visited, he was living in Las Vegas while the Las Vegas Temple was being built, and had passed by it so many times and decided to go with his family to the open house. This was years ago. And when he was describing the temple, his face just lit up. I felt the Spirit. He was saying of how beautiful it was, and his little son was asking, "Can we go to church here?" And so we started talking about it, and he was really impressed with missionaries and how they would, on their own dime, take out this time from their lives. And turns out the repair didn't work. There's problems with the parts. And so he's actually come back to my house a couple of times. And the second time he came back and it didn't work, I had the impression, your oven will not be fixed until you invite him to church. So I told this to Chris, who is much more assertive person than I am, and happened to be at our house the next time that this gentleman was over repairing again the oven. And so Chris was coming through the kitchen and went to his car and thought, I need to go back in there. So he came back in and he sat down, and he was testing out the oven and everything. So it was a lengthy time that he was at our house. And Chris invited, we are again talking about the gospel again, and about the church and about missionaries. And Chris said, you need to come to our church. And he wrote down the address and the time of our sacrament meeting and slid it over to him. And so me thinking that maybe that was like, whoa, too bold, I texted him the following Saturday, thinking that I was reiterating the invitation, but saying, I'm sorry if you felt uncomfortable, we'd love to see you there. And I really did feel like Heavenly Father was telling me that I needed to invite you to church. And so then he couldn't come that week. He said, once the oven's repaired, I'll come to visit your church. And I was like, okay, well, that's what Heavenly Father told me, so all right. So then he came again. And he had said that he showed his wife the text from me, and she said, that's her way of uninviting you to church. And I thought, no, that was me saying sorry if it was too pushy. But I realized in that moment that being bold and assertive and genuinely wanting that person to come to church is more powerful than I don't want to offend you. And so that's a huge missionary lesson that I've learned, and I hope that he comes next week because my oven has been fixed.
Wasn't that amazing? Follow the promptings of the Spirit.
And remember, expect a miracle.